alongside when my mom said just try some stuff, she also said go back to what you did when you were 5. And so the reason that's significant to how it influenced the book is because it really simplified this idea that I think can feel so complex and so overwhelming for us. And so I wanted to offer something that was so simple and broke it down and helped a reader understand that maybe my purpose isn't something I need to find, because maybe it's not actually lost.
Welcome to the Radio Theology Podcast with Pastor Darren Earlywine, where you'll hear inspiring stories of people just like you, living out who they were born to be. Here's Pastor Darren.
Hey, welcome back to Radio Theology, the podcast, here with the one and only Jordan Lee Dooley, Indiana's own. You're a Hoosier.
Born and bred.
I believe your dog is even named Hoosier.
My dog
correct?
is actually named Hoosier.
See, now that's dedication. That's dedication to the cause. Jordan, we've been, the Radio Theology family, we've been watching over the past year, really, with the book and everything that you're doing. You're on fire right now, which is so cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I love it. You, I believe one of the phrases that you're using, I don't know if it's new to you, but I think you said you're an authorpreneur.
Yes.
Did you make that up? Or?
So I saw someone hashtag that. I don't know who hashtagged it. I think it was on a Discover page, and I was like, that's it. That's it. And I've never heard of that. It's something I've never seen anywhere else, but I just happened to see in a hashtag, paragraph of hashtags.
Yeah.
And it stood out to me, and I thought, that's exactly what I am.
I love it.
So I've claimed it.
I love it. I love it. When I read it, I love that because, Radio Theology every single week remind people of 3 things: is that God's for them, not against them, that He's near them, not far from them, and He's created them on purpose and for a purpose. And I think in the pursuit of that purpose, one of the things that we're seeing more and more and more is people having, Jeff coined this phrase of this portfolio life. And you have multiple things you're pursuing, a lot of the same heart behind it. But I guess take us back to that journey, because, here on these Friday interviews we do on the Radio Theology podcast, we want to dive into how you're discovering who God's created you to be. And so for you, from being an authorpreneur, you've got the podcast that might change its name. We're not sure what's happening, right? You've got the book, you've got the shop, you've got your speaking. Kind of maybe take us back to just how did this kind of start for you?
Yeah, it started as kind of a little bit of an accident. I was studying healthcare administration, and I was wrapping up that degree, had done some internships, kind of explored that career path, and didn't feel excited about it. I kind of felt that, did I just make the wrong decision for my life? So I was talking with my mom, great mom advice, and I told her, I said, I don't know if I want to do this path or this internship or this possible job that I'm pursuing. And she goes, okay, so don't. And I was like, that's not very good mom advice.
Moms usually give you this is the safe path.
Yes. And my mom's never been like that, which I actually really have learned to appreciate. But she basically said, look, whether or not you take the job, it's still your life is going to work out and God's going to get His way. So while you're in this season of exploring and you're young, you don't have a whole lot of responsibilities, she said, try some stuff. Yeah. Literally her advice to me was try some stuff. And so I set out trying a couple different things, and I ended up choosing to open an Etsy store because I liked hand lettering. I won the handwriting contest in 3rd grade.
There we go.
It was a very natural path. But so I picked up hand lettering, and I would just make canvases, and I would draw on mugs and just different ceramics and things like that. And I would actually sell it to friends first, or friends' moms first, and then I put it on Etsy. And from there it began to grow, and I would start doing logo designs and things like that. Well, flash forward, I started creating some content. I figured out, this social media thing's starting to kind of become a thing. What if I maybe created just shared stories? What if I shared stories alongside what I'm writing just to encourage people? And so the content and then learning how to use social media really is what started to help take off the brand, and shared about my faith, and I shared about my relationship, and I shared about the content or the creation process and the mug that I had for sale or whatever it was. And so that's kind of the very small beginning, and then that evolved into several different creative endeavors over the years. But ultimately the kind of common thread has been creating content alongside of whatever I'm doing. What
I love about that, Jordan, is we talk about a lot on our Born to Be interviews is how early, because we believe that every one of us has a spiritual DNA that God's placed within us, right? That we have everything we need to serve God, to become who we were born to be. It's in us by God's Spirit. So everything that you've needed from birth till now and for the rest of your life and journey, it's already in you. It's already put in you by God's Spirit. I think it's amazing that you even bring this idea of I won the handwriting competition, right? But that's significant. So for you, you've already given us that back date of I realized that I've been good at that for a long time. That's a natural thing that you're good at. What's something else that you can look back and say, you know what, I can see that God was actually beginning to put signposts way back in the day for you?
Well, I wrote short stories as a kid. My very first book was Kim and Ben's Fair.
Oh, sounds good.
Brother and sister went to a carnival, and the big sad moment was when Dad said it was time to come home for dinner. The worst, right? I was like 7 years old, and that's every 7-year-old's worst nightmare.
Tragedy.
So that was, I would always write short stories, and then I also, I loved make-believe. I loved make-believe, and when I would play make-believe, I would often line up my stuffed animals and my grandma, and they were students, and she would pretend to be a student, and I would be the teacher. Was it your actual grandma, or you had a little figurine that was your grandma? Actually my grandma.
Yes.
Okay. So she would just pretend to be the student, and I would be the teacher, or I would, be the doctor, or whatever I wanted to be, but normally I was teaching, and so it makes a lot of sense that I'm now using my voice to, in some ways, teach and educate and coach and mentor through avenues like a book and a podcast and speaking and things like that. So it's interesting to me how those little moments of make-believe that I just thought were fun as a kid, and those silly stories really now have evolved.
See, I love that. And I think it's interesting to see, like, if you could go back to, 6, 7, 8-year-old Jordan and be like, hey, check it out. Like, this is fun today. But in a few years, like, this is going to be what you do to impact other people. Probably the 7-year-old version of yourself would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But probably couldn't believe it.
What's a podcast? That didn't exist back then.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
But I think so many people that are really wanting to understand their purpose in their life, to understand why God put them on this earth, they maybe don't start far enough back. Like, they're like, what's the past 6 months looks like? It's like, no, like, what's the past, my whole life look like to where I am now?
Yeah.
So somebody maybe talk a little bit about the book. Own It, right? It's like owning your everyday. Talk about that heart behind putting the book together and how that came through the whole journey.
Well, I wanted the book to answer the question that I get all the time on the internet, just via email or whatever. And the question is, how do I figure out what I'm doing with my life? Or ultimately, how do I find my purpose? Yeah. And so I really started digging into that idea of purpose and finding your purpose and all this stuff. And even what you were just sharing, I want to just touch on, alongside when my mom said, just try some stuff, she also said, go back to what you did when you were 5. And so the reason that's significant to how it influenced the book is because it really simplified this idea that I think can feel so complex and so overwhelming for us. And so I wanted to offer something that was so simple and broke it down and helped a reader understand that maybe my purpose isn't something I need to find, because maybe it's not actually lost. And maybe if I started looking inside and started bringing that and looking back at what we've done and bring that to my everyday life, I think we can feel so much pressure to chase these extraordinary things. And my argument is, you're never going to get to do the extraordinary things until you learn to show up for, and sometimes fail at, and try again, the everyday things, the not so cool, small everyday things, the little hand lettering, doodling store that I often worried my friends would judge me for, right? Like, that has ultimately led to things that now I often get like, well, how'd you get here? And I said, a lot of imperfect everyday moments. And I think we forget that. And so the idea behind the book was ultimately to say, are you owning your everyday? Because before you can jump into the extraordinary or that big, cool, awesome thing you want to do, it starts here. And that's where your purpose is lived.
I love it. I mean, I think today is a snapshot of that, right? I mean, just a moment ago, you're speaking in front of, 2,000 people at a conference, and people can see that snapshot and go, oh my gosh, like, I want to be like her. How'd she get there? But it's not like, well, I luckily got into this, and it was, no, like, I wrote short stories, I did this, and then, like, it's this progression, day in and day out. What's maybe something you can take us back to, a story where, a moment where one of the more difficult yeses that you had to give to an opportunity?
Well, one thing that I'll speak into that is I have had to learn through many of those situations is that usually, I think we often are told, take big action, take big steps. And I actually have learned through my own experiences that big steps are nothing more than a series of incremental movements. And so when we can start breaking something down to what's the incremental action step that I can implement right now with my, for example, saying yes to even starting the Etsy shop. I didn't have $10,000 to invest into having an online store. I had $10 to go to Hobby Lobby. And so that was an incremental step. I said, I can go get a canvas and some Sharpies. I'm going to sell that for $20. Now I have $20. I'm going to go invest that again. So it wasn't this big, grand yes of like, I mean, I've had some of those for sure over the journey, but I always come back to that because I think sometimes we think that our yes is going to be this huge, mountainous thing and it's going to change our lives forever. And it's sometimes the smallest decisions. Another example, completely career, not related to career, is my husband and I. The night we met, he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to go meet this girl that I've, connected with through mutual friends, but never actually really met. And I had plans with someone else too, and that fell through. And so I said, I might as well say hey.
Yeah.
And it was one of those situations where he said, it's crazy how one tiny decision like that can change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
So just two different examples. But
I love it. What's intriguing to me right now is that you're in this kind of this in-between space, right? Where you're not a brand new startup, like you've got some momentum. Maybe there's somebody they're not just trying to find it, but what's something that you're learning right now about responding to and trying to maintain some of the momentum that you're experiencing right now?
One of the biggest lessons of the last year of my life has been asking myself consistently, what can I let go and what do I need to grow?
Talk about that.
Because I think we get to a season, like you said, kind of in the middle where things are growing, momentum is picking up, people are noticing, things are happening. And there comes a point where you only have so much capacity. And there's also, a big lesson I've been trying to live out is to build your life or your career around your life, not your life around your career. And thinking about that, I go, okay, what does this season of my life look like for family and family building? And also, how can I do a couple things really, really well? I always call myself multi-passionate because if I could do everything, I would do everything. Yeah. And so there was a season where I was really growing one brand, and it got to a point where I was like, is that what I'm supposed to be doing? Or is that supposed to grow into something new? And so I spent some time praying on that and discerning it and seeking counsel. And I knew that it was like, okay, this is where we started. And I think sometimes we can hold so tightly onto those things that are familiar and that we know work.
Especially when sometimes it's that first baby or that first idea that worked. If you are a entrepreneur, if you are a visionary, if you're a pioneer type of person, it's like, you create that first thing, and if it came to life, it's like, it's my baby. I can't stop doing that thing.
Right. And so that was a big decision I've had to make this year, is to allow myself to pivot and even be willing to let something that's good go a little bit, not to abandon it, not to neglect it, but to slowly phase and create white space in my life for what needs to be created next. After going on book tour, it was so evident what my community was asking for, what they were needing guidance on, and that I felt like I can't be holding all of this over here and then also do that for you over here. So what's the most organic, healthy, streamlined way to do this? And so I had to start asking myself and God, what do I need to let go and what needs to grow? And as I got a lot of clarity on what needed to grow, I had to be okay with laying some things down, which could be forever, or it could be for a year, or it could be for a season. But I think we can be so unwilling to let things go, and we limit our own potential and what God wants to do with us when we do that.
That's good. That's worth the price of admission right there. So good. All right, Jordan, let's hit you with the lightning round.
All right.
Okay? It's very, very simple.
Okay.
This is not hard.
Okay.
Got it. We just need a book, a band, and a movie that have greatly impacted your life.
Okay. Right now?
This is the lightning round right now.
Okay.
Boom! Lightning.
Okay. Book, I would say I have been, trying to pick between a couple. So my husband actually was playing it more on audiobook, but Every Good Endeavor by Tim Keller. I'm stuck between that one and The Path Between Us because The Path Between Us really helped our marriage. But those are the books. What's the second question?
A band.
A band. Man, I'm not lightning fast enough for this.
It's fine. I mean, maybe it's a brewing storm round. Skies are getting dark in the distance round.
Okay. I think maybe the band Need to Breathe.
Okay.
Great one. Partially because that's something, again, my husband and I share. We like to share things a lot. And then
that's
the
good
third.
For marriage.
Yes, it's a good thing. And the third is a movie. Just saw the Mr. Rogers.
I want to see it.
Yes, it was the pre-screening or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
The screening. Amazing. Incredibly impactful, very needed in our, I feel like, current culture, and it was awesome. So
wonderful. Awesome. Hey, thanks for tuning in for this episode of the Radio Theology Podcast with the one and only Jordan Lee Dooley. Jordan, congratulations on everything that's going on. The book, the podcast, the cups, the dog. You've got it all going on.
Thank you.
And we'll stay connected. How can people stay connected to you if they don't know about you yet from the podcast?
On Instagram is where I hang out. I mean, I'm pretty much on all social platforms, but I feel like Instagram's kind of a favorite. So yes. Jordan Lee Dooley on Instagram.
Just that easy. Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Radio Theology Podcast. We'd love for you to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with a friend. Talk to you next time, but until then, don't forget, God is for you, not against you. He is near to you, not far away from you, and He has created you on purpose and for a purpose. Have a great day.